Coming up on Vegas Nation Blitz, we discuss if the Raiders could make their way to Las Vegas sooner than planned. Raiders defensive tackle Maurice Hurst joins the show, and we give you the latest updates from Allegiant Stadium, future home of the Las Vegas Raiders.
Excited to know where we're going to be playing, and excited to have a city that is excited about having us.
We are now the Las Vegas Raiders.
Welcome in, everyone, for another episode of Vegas Nation Blitz. I'm your host, Cassie Soto. Well, it looks like the Raiders could call Las Vegas home sooner than previously planned, as the Raiders are seriously considering moving their training camp from Napa, California, to their training facility here in Henderson, Nevada. Well, for more on that, let's go ahead and bring in our Raiders beat writer for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, Vinny Bonsignor. Vinny, are the rumors true? Could we expect to see the Raiders here in Las Vegas sooner than anticipated?
Oh, most definitely. And in fact, their moving vans are in Henderson from Alameda already. So they're already unloading stuff. They're at the Henderson facility. It's an ongoing process. There's a lot to move when you're talking about weights and all those good things and office supplies, everything. There's a lot of stuff that's coming from Alameda, but they're in the process right now of getting it moved in.
And as far as training camp goes, do we now know that training camp will be held here instead of Napa, California?
We do, and it was trending in that direction even before the NFL came out with a mandate to say, hey, look, you know what? For teams that go away for training camp, the Raiders being one of them, the Rams, instead of doing that, let's have the training camps all at team facilities or your home stadium. But it's a good move. It enables the NFL and NFL teams to have much more of a controlled atmosphere. We all know that COVID-19 is still a crisis and an ongoing crisis. So it gives them a little bit of a leg up on keeping a lid on that. But for sure, the Raiders will be in Henderson. And for all you fans out there who worry about the Las Vegas heat, there's an indoor facility. There's plenty of space in there for a football field, actually 1.5 football fields. There's no way that they're going to be outside practicing in the middle of August. In fact, I wouldn't expect to see the Raiders on the field outside, until late September, maybe even October.
Well, as far as the rest of the league goes, do we know any hard set dates yet? Are they still playing it by ear as far as COVID goes? There's still possibility of that second wave. So do we know when they expect to get teams in those facilities and players back on the field?
It typically starts in late July, first week of August, last week of July. But I've heard this from some people in the NFL. There might be a situation where they start about a week early. Not for sure. Obviously, they're going to have to get on the same page with the NFL Players Association with this. But maybe a runway to training camp. So maybe you could get a quick rookie mini camp in place, maybe some conditioning periods for veterans, some walkthrough situations. This way, players aren't just thrown into a training camp atmosphere and environment without a proper offseason of conditioning and the things that they normally do. And of course, they're going to have to get Players Association approval on that, and that's still not for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happened.
All right, Vinny. Well, we look forward for those continued updates. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead now and bring in social media manager for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, Adrian Iadarko. Adrian, the sports world has sounded off recently across all social media platforms, voicing their support for Black Lives Matter protesters who are obviously looking for justice, seeking justice in response to an unarmed black man being killed by Minneapolis police back on May 25th. And this, of course, Adrian, has happened over 2,000 miles away from Las Vegas, but it hits home here as you see protesters up and down the strip, and that also includes Las Vegas Raiders sounding off on this issue. Let's start from the top here, Adrian. What does Raiders owner Mark Davis have to say about this injustice and really just showing his support for the family of George Floyd?
Yeah, so he put a statement out late on Sunday night on Twitter, and he called the incident disturbing in too many ways. He also said we all have a challenge as Americans and human beings to come up with a solution for this. So it was really nice to see the leader of the owners not being silent on this matter and really stepping up and lending his voice and his platform to stand up against police brutality and racism.
Yeah, and the leader on the field, Derek Carr, Raiders quarterback, he is also sounding off on this issue as well.
Yeah, he was one of the first to actually sound off, which was nice to see. He put a statement out on Twitter last week before the weekend even started. And he said he was disgusted, mad, and brokenhearted when he watched the video of George Floyd being killed. And he said he was raised to love everyone, and that's exactly how he will raise his children. So he had some really nice things to say, and it's just nice to see the Raiders leadership, like I said, not being silent on this issue, but stepping up, using their platform to speak out against this police brutality and racism that's going on in our country. Even the Vegas Golden Knights put out a statement last night. So I think this is an issue, you can't be silent on, especially in a sport where there's so many African Americans. They kind of dominate the landscape. So, if this doesn't bother you, something's wrong.
Right. All right, Adrian. Well, thank you so much for that social media update.
You got it.
Be sure to stick around after the break because we will be joined by Las Vegas Raiders defensive tackle Maurice Hurst. We'll be right back. Which 1980s movie featured the former Raider John Matusak? Was it A, The Goonies, B, Gremlins, C, Revenge of the Nerds, or D, The Toxic Avenger? Stay with us for the answer. Thank you so much for joining into this week's edition of Vegas Nation Blitz. I'm your host, Cassie Soto, joined this week by our special guest and Las Vegas Raiders defensive tackle, Maurice Hurst. Maurice, thanks for taking some time today.
Thanks for having me.
How crazy is it, or has it settled in already, hearing your team name be called Las Vegas Raiders? Has that hit you yet?
A little bit. I mess it up personally all the time still, so it's a little bit tough at times to remember, but really exciting.
Well, let's just start with something that I recently saw you tweet out, Mo. And you tweeted a GoFundMe fundraiser. It was called Access for All, and it's helping kids, helping raise money for kids who are put out of school, obviously, because of the coronavirus, who don't have access to computers and Wi-Fi. Why was that so important for you to do and voice your support for something like this?
I mean, it's just a really difficult time. There's so many schools, around the U.S. that, just don't have access to online learning. And, it unfortunately is like a lot of minorities and a lot of people who don't have money are going to get left behind. And, there's going to be an even bigger gap and it's going to be hard for them to, make opportunities for themselves. So it's definitely going to be a similar trend, and those kids are going to be even further behind than previously, because it's not just a summer, it's a year or longer, depending on what happened.
Right. Well, once again, that's called Access for All. Maurice has that link up on his Instagram, so you can go there and check that out. But let's get now to the football side of things here, Maurice. I can't believe that the draft was already a month ago, if you can believe that. Your team picking up some huge talent. I sort of just want to get your thoughts on those late round guys. You being a fifth rounder yourself, teams overlooked some talent to let these guys get to your team in the third and fourth round. How can they, though, really make an impact despite where they were drafted in this year's class?
Yeah, I mean, there's some great, value guys there. Like we got, Brian Edwards, who's just, a freak athlete. Any other draft, you can put him in the first round. So, you get those steals of the draft, and, like Taron Muse and those guys that we drafted later on, those guys are people that are contribute for us and play, right away. Big threats, able to, kind of plug and play those guys anywhere. And
well, Mo, as far as this season goes, you're entering year 3 now with the Raiders. How much pressure, if any at all, are you putting on yourself to replicate what you were able to do your rookie season back in 2018? 31 tackles, 4 sacks. What are you doing to really push yourself this year?
Yeah, I mean, just, pushing myself, to the limit, every day, just working hard, understand the game more. And I think that's the biggest thing, going from, your freshman to your sophomore season and then going to that third year. You just learned so much about the game. And, we got a new D-line coach in Rod Marinelli, and, he's coached some of the great defensive linemen. So, we've been able to watch those guys like, Warren Sapp and, just some of those players that, just really jump off the screen.
You mentioned the addition of Marinelli. How about a guy like Malik Collins? What can you learn from him? Both of those guys having worked together. How are you seeing yourself going to be able to grow under them?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I've always been a huge fan of his, and just what he does on the field. You get a lot of respect for certain players in the league, and he's one of those guys that I really respected, the way that he played, the way he played tough. And when I heard he was coming to our team, I was really excited to get to work with him. And he's a workhorse, and he's someone that we're going to be able to push each other to keep getting better and keep fighting for that time in the field. And I think it's going to make both of us just better football players in general.
Well, as far as some of your other teammates go, Derek Carr, Darren Waller, Zay Jones, and Alec Ingle, to name a few, getting some work in here. I think locally in Las Vegas already, they've been thrown at the local parks here. What do you think that says about them, despite that the current situation that we're in, that states obviously are lifting restrictions and they're getting out there trying to get in as much work as they can despite these virtual times that we're in?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about team building. So, getting those guys together and, getting them on the same page, it's everything. And, between the Zooms and, texts or whatever, FaceTimes, to the guys, it's all just, bringing us a little bit closer. Everyone has a little bit more time. I mean, even to some like, playing Xbox or something, like just getting to, spend time with your teammates and getting to know them and check in on them, see how their families are doing, things like that. I think those are the things that bring you closer as a team.
What games are you playing with your teammates on Xbox?
I beat everyone in Madden, mostly Max. I think I'm like 4 or 5-0 versus Max. He keeps asking me to play with him, but, it's not really, competition at this point.
Well, let's just stick on your teammates here. Mo, I have to ask you, some of your teammates are really taking to heart the once a Raider, always a Raider, and are getting the Raider shield tattooed on different parts of their body. Do you think that they're absolutely nuts, or is this something that you might do once you get here to Las Vegas?
I definitely wouldn't rule it out. The guys just, you love the Raiders. It's just, everything that it embodies. And, it's just hard not to. I mean, you love the logo, the shield, and just everything about it. It's just, it's different than anywhere else you go, I feel like.
Yeah, well, I spoke with Jalen Richard last week, and I asked him how excited he is to not be tackled on a baseball diamond anymore. How excited are you to not have to tackle people on a baseball diamond anymore?
Shoot, that's tough. I was really hoping that that sadly that the A's would lose, because once they lose, they take off the baseball field. So selfishly, I was rooting for them to lose, but you really wanted to win for the city. So, I mean, it's hard. It was hard playing, in the Coliseum with that. But, Coliseum is great, too, though. Like, love the black hole, love those fans. And, I'm really hoping those guys, just, hop in a little van and road trip down to Las Vegas.
Well, I'm sure those fans can't wait to see you guys get going. Just excited as you guys are to get here to Las Vegas. Mo, thank you so much for taking some time again.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me.
When we come back, Vegas Nation podcast host Heidi Fang and NFL reporter Adam Hill will discuss if the NFL Players Association thinks that the season will start on time. Stay with us. The answer is A, The Goonies. Matusak, who won 2 Super Bowls in his 6 seasons with the Raiders, played the large and lovable sloth in The Goonies. His film credits also include North Dallas 40 and Caveman.
Welcome back to the Vegas Nation Blitz. It's your podcast host, Heidi Fang, here, joined along with our NFL writer, Adam Hill. And we're going to talk a little bit about some things happening right now in the NFL. Now, amid the coronavirus, most of the facilities had been closed. And while they're starting to reopen, and we're starting to see some positive signs that the season could be on track to happen as scheduled, Adam, DeMaurice Smith, the NFLPA executive director, seems to believe that that's not going to happen. He's a little bit more apprehensive, not so optimistic as others. Why do you think that is? And do you think he has reason to be concerned that the NFL season won't happen on time?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. A lot of positive signs have been happening in sports lately. We're seeing, soccer leagues are coming back. The KBO certainly is operating pretty well. We've got UFC, and now we even have a plan in the NHL. But, plans are one thing, and actually putting them into action is another. The benefit that the NFL has is that they had a lot of time. While these other leagues were paused, the NBA, the NHL, They had to pause their season. MLB had to delay the start of their season. NFL had a lot of time. So I think they have the benefit to kind of look over what these other leagues do, try to figure out what they do right, what they do wrong, and then put that into practice. But while there's all this positive momentum, I think everybody took a step back this week because, as you mentioned, DeMaurice Smith went on Real Sports on HBO and just said, you know what, if you ask me what the number is of out of 10, how optimistic I am, I'm going to say 6 or 7. And people are like, wait a minute, that is not a very overwhelming endorsement that we're going to have NFL football this year. But I think he's just being realistic. He knows there's a lot of issues to work out. And I think he just wants to say, like, hey, listen, we are intending on playing a season. We think there's going to be a season, but let's not be all in on, hey, this is definitely going to happen. There are still things to work out. So I wouldn't be too concerned yet. The NFL still has plenty of time, and things are trending in the right direction. But I think he put a little bit of a yellow light up, and people had to say, okay, let's see where exactly we are.
Okay, so we'll see how this develops, and we will keep you apprised of everything developing with the NFL season. Thanks, Adam, so much for all of your information there, as always. But coming up right now, we have our next edition of Raiders History. Check it out. In this episode of Raiders History, we look back at the top 3 draft busts as chosen by our Review Journal Sports Minds. Number 3, Darius Hayward-Bay. The wide receiver was drafted 7th overall by the Raiders in 2009. Al Davis loved speedy wideouts and had his eye on Darius Hayward-Bay after he posted a 4.340 time at the Combine. Speed wasn't enough to help Hayward-Bay with his on-field issues. He became known for dropping passes and never posted a 1,000-yard season with the Raiders. Number 2, Todd Marinovich. From the moment Todd was born, his father groomed him to become an elite athlete. A Sports Illustrated article dubbed Todd America's first test tube athlete. Marinovich played 2 seasons at USC, and following an arrest for cocaine possession, he declared for the NFL draft. The Raiders grabbed him with the number 24 pick in the 1991 draft. Marinovich's career was plagued by substance abuse. At the end of his rookie season, after his first failed drug test, he went to rehab for 45 days. He returned and failed again in 1992 and again in 1993, which led to him being suspended for the entire season. Marinovich's NFL career was finished before it ever got started due to his substance abuse problems. Number 1, Jamarcus Russell. Another Raider quarterback with a short-lived career was former LSU star and Sugar Bowl MVP Jamarcus Russell. The Raiders made him the number 1 pick of the 2007 NFL Draft. To start, Russell's contract holdout lasted into the first week of the 2007 NFL season. Though he eventually signed a contract valued at over $60 million with $31.5 million guaranteed, he was not named as the starting quarterback. Josh McCown was. Russell got his first career start in the last game of the season against the San Diego Chargers. He turned the football over twice and finished the season throwing 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and lost 2 fumbles. Despite that, he was named the 2008 starter. In his next 2 seasons, his production was inconsistent and the turnovers continued. His work ethic came into question as reports surfaced that Russell came into 2010's minicamp close to 300 pounds. In May 2010, the Raiders released Russell. In July of 2010, he was arrested for possession of codeine syrup without a prescription. Though he was not indicted on the charge, the arrest was enough to scare off other NFL teams from signing him. And despite a few comeback attempts, Russell never played another snap in the NFL. Honorable mentions went to John Clay, Bob Bukowski, Rolando McClain, and Robert Gallery. That'll do it for this episode of Raiders History.
Thanks for tuning back into Vegas Nation Blitz. I'm your host, Cassie Soto. The road ahead for the Las Vegas Raiders is less than 60 days away from its scheduled completion date as crews over at Allegiant Stadium work tirelessly to put those finishing touches on that nearly $2 billion stadium. To give us the latest update, there is Allegiant Stadium insider for the Las Vegas Review Journal, Mick Akers. Mick?
Thanks, Cassie. Mick Akers here at Allegiant Stadium, where crews are hard at work to reach that July 31st completion date.
Crews have been striping Lot B, which will be used as a shuttle bus pickup and drop-off point for game and event days at Allegiant Stadium. Polaris Avenue between Russell and Hacienda was recently widened in anticipation for the increased traffic flow to the stadium. A new light was also added at the intersection of Polaris and Hacienda. New Welcome to Allegiant Stadium signage was added to the north end of the stadium, which will serve as the main entrance to the 2,065,000 seat facility. Additionally, crews added a prefabricated ticket booth just to the east of the main entrance, which will serve as a walk-up point to buy tickets for event and game days. Crews are also finishing up landscaping, sidewalk work, paving, and sign installation ahead of the July 31st completion date. With less than 2 months to go until the July 31st completion date, Raiders owner Mark Davis said he'll be sweating up until the final minute. So much so that Mark Davis said don't be surprised to see him wipe a bead of sweat off his brow at the ribbon cutting ceremony. For Vegas Nation Blitz, this is Mick Akers signing off from Allegiant Stadium.
Mick, thank you so much for that Allegiant Stadium update. Well, if you're looking for more information on the stadium or the Las Vegas Raiders, you can always go to vegasnation.com or download the free Vegas Nation app, where you'll find the latest interviews, podcasts, and stories regarding the Raiders. And once again, that's the Vegas Nation app. For Vegas Nation Blitz, I'm Cassie Soto.